How to read people instantly. 3 unspoken cues. People are lying to you every single day, and you have no idea it's happening. But there are 3 body language cues that reveal what someone is really thinking, no matter what words come out of their mouth. You're constantly surrounded by people who aren't saying what they really mean. Your coworker who says they're fine with your idea, but secretly hates it. Your friend who claims they want to hang out, but is looking for an excuse to leave. The person on a date who says they're interested, but has already checked out. Most people think you need to be some kind of psychology expert to read these signals, but that's not true. There are 3 specific things you can watch for that will instantly tell you what someone is really thinking. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to spot them every single time. Here's the thing that nobody tells you about reading people. We're all taught to listen to words, but words are actually the least reliable form of communication. People lie all the time, not even necessarily because they're bad people, but because society has trained us to hide what we really think and feel. You ask someone how their day was, they say fine, but they're actually stressed out and overwhelmed. You pitch an idea in a meeting, everyone nods and says it sounds good, but half the room thinks it's terrible. Someone tells you they'll call you back, but they have zero intention of doing it. This creates a huge problem in basically every area of life. You can't build real relationships if you can't tell what people actually think about you. You can't be effective at work if you can't read the room and understand who's really on board with your ideas. You can't protect yourself from manipulation if you can't spot when someone is being dishonest. The frustrating part is that most people know they're not great at reading others, but they don't know how to fix it. They think some people are just naturally good at it and others aren't. But that's not how it works. Reading people is a skill, just like any other skill. And like any skill, it's based on knowing what to look for. Most people fail at reading others because they're looking at the wrong things. They're listening to the words and maybe watching for obvious signs like crossed arms or avoiding eye contact. But the real signals are way more subtle and way more reliable than those obvious cues everyone knows about. In fact, some of the things people think they know about body language are completely wrong, like the crossed arms thing. Everyone thinks crossed arms means someone is defensive or closed off. But sometimes people cross their arms because they're cold, or because it's comfortable, or because they don't know what to do with their hands. It doesn't automatically mean anything. The cues I'm about to show you are different. These are things that people can't easily fake or control. They happen automatically, before the person even realizes they're doing it. And once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Let me break down the 3 unspoken cues that will let you read anyone, anywhere, instantly. These aren't tricks or gimmicks. They're based on how human psychology and physiology actually work. Cue number 1. Baseline behavior. Know their true state first. The first and most important cue is something most people completely skip, and it's why they fail at reading others. You can't spot a lie or hidden emotion if you don't know what the person looks like when they're being normal and truthful. This is called establishing a baseline. Think of it like this. If you're a doctor listening to someone's heartbeat, you need to know what a normal heartbeat sounds like before you can identify if something is wrong. If you've never heard a healthy heart, you won't recognize when you're hearing an unhealthy one. The same applies to reading people. Everyone has different normal behaviors. Some people naturally fidget a lot. Some people always avoid eye contact even when they're being completely honest. Some people touch their face constantly. Some people hardly move at all. If you don't know someone's baseline behavior, you might think they're lying when they're just being themselves. Or worse, you might miss obvious deception because the person happens to be naturally calm and controlled. So here's how you establish a baseline. When you first interact with someone, or at the beginning of a conversation, watch how they behave when they're relaxed and talking about neutral topics. Pay attention to things like how much they move their hands, how often they make eye contact, their speaking pace, their facial expressions, how they position their body. This is their normal state. This is what truth looks like for this specific person. Once you have that locked in, you can spot deviations from it. Let's say you're interviewing someone for a job. At the beginning, you ask them easy questions. How was their drive here? What did they think of the weather? General small talk. During this phase, the person has no reason to be deceptive. They're relaxed, or at least as relaxed as they're going to be in this situation. Maybe you notice they maintain steady eye contact during these casual questions. They speak at a moderate pace. Their hands rest comfortably on the table. They occasionally smile. That's their baseline for this interaction. Now you start asking more serious questions. Tell me about a time you failed at something. Why did you leave your last job? What's your biggest weakness? These are questions where someone might be tempted to lie or exaggerate or hide something. If their behavior changes significantly from the baseline you established, that's a red flag. Maybe suddenly they break eye contact more often, or their speech speeds up or slows down noticeably, or their hands start moving more, or they go completely still, or they stop smiling entirely. These deviations tell you something triggered a different emotional state. It doesn't automatically mean they're lying. It could mean they're anxious, uncomfortable, or thinking hard. But it definitely means something about this topic is affecting them differently than the casual topics. Here's a real example from my own life. I had a friend who would always look me straight in the eye during normal conversation. That was his baseline. Direct eye contact was normal for him, but whenever certain topics came up, specifically anything about his relationship, his eyes would dart to the side or down. Every single time. That deviation from his baseline told me something was going on there. He wasn't comfortable talking about his relationship, and sure enough, I later found out they were having serious problems that he was hiding from everyone. If I hadn't known his baseline, I might not have noticed the eye contact change, or I might have misread it as normal behavior for him. But because I knew what his true state looked like, the change was obvious. Another key thing about baselines, they can shift during a single conversation. Someone might start out nervous and fidgety, then relax as they get more comfortable. So their baseline at the beginning is different from their baseline 15 minutes in. You need to constantly update your understanding of what normal looks like for them in this moment. Professional interrogators use this technique all the time. They spend the first chunk of an interview asking questions they already know the answers to, or questions that don't matter, just to watch how the person behaves when they're telling the truth. Then when they get to the important questions, they can immediately spot any behavioral changes. You can do the same thing in everyday life. Before you ask someone something important, spend a few minutes in casual conversation. Watch how they normally act. Then when you ask what you really want to know, compare their behavior to that baseline. Cue number 2, directional cues, where their feet point. The second cue is something most people never think to look at, but it's incredibly reliable. It's the direction someone's feet are pointing. This might sound weird, but feet don't lie. Here's why this works. Your feet are controlled by the oldest, most primitive part of your brain, the part that handles survival instincts. When humans were evolving, our feet needed to be ready to run toward food or away from danger at any moment. That connection between feet and survival instinct is still hardwired into us. Your upper body, your face, your hands, your posture, these are all controlled by more conscious parts of your brain. You can fake a smile. You can force yourself to maintain eye contact. You can control your hand gestures. But your feet operate mostly on autopilot, directed by your subconscious. So when someone is talking to you, their feet will naturally point toward what they're actually interested in or where they actually want to be. And when they want to leave or aren't interested, their feet will point away toward the exit. Let me give you some specific scenarios so you can see how powerful this is. You're at a party talking to someone. They're facing you, making eye contact, smiling, saying all the right things. But if you look down, their feet are pointed toward the door or toward another group of people. That person wants to leave this conversation. They might be too polite to say it, but their feet are screaming that they want out. On the other hand, if someone's feet are pointed directly at you, even if their upper body is turned slightly away, that's a sign of genuine interest. Their subconscious is saying you're where they want to be. This works in groups too. Watch a group of 3 or 4 people talking. Look at where everyone's feet are pointed. If 3 people have their feet forming a closed circle, and the 4th person's feet are pointing in, but there's a gap, that's the group subtly excluding that person. They're not fully welcome in the conversation, even if everyone is being polite about it. But if people's feet are forming an open circle with a gap, that's an invitation. That's the group signaling they're open to someone else joining. In professional settings, foot direction can tell you who actually has the power in a room. During a meeting, watch where people's feet point when multiple people are talking. They'll usually orient toward whoever they think is most important or whoever they're trying to impress, even if that person isn't currently speaking. You can also use this to detect attraction or interest. If you're on a date and the person's feet are pointed directly at you, especially if they're leaning in too, that's a very good sign. Their body is literally orienting toward you because they're interested. But if their feet are pointed away, even if everything else seems fine, they're not feeling it. Their subconscious wants to leave, even if they're being polite and finishing the date. Here's another practical use. Figuring out if someone is done talking to you. You're chatting with a coworker by their desk. They say yeah and uh-huh and seem engaged, but their feet shift and point toward their computer or toward the hallway. They're done with this conversation and want to get back to work. Time to wrap it up. The really sneaky thing about foot direction is that it works both ways. You can read other people's feet, but your feet are also giving you away. If you're in a conversation you don't want to be in, your feet are probably pointing toward the exit, even if you're trying to be polite. So if you want to make someone feel like you're genuinely interested in talking to them, make sure your feet are pointed at them. That small adjustment makes your body language congruent with your words, and people will subconsciously pick up on it and feel more comfortable with you. There's also a more subtle version of this with foot movement. When someone is about to leave a conversation, their feet often start making small movements, shifting weight, taking tiny steps, pivoting slightly. It's their body preparing to move even before they've consciously decided to end the interaction. If you see someone's feet start doing this little dance, they're getting ready to bail. You've got maybe 30 seconds before they find an excuse to leave. Cue number 3, micro expressions. The flash they can't hide. The third cue is what most people think of when they hear about reading body language, but almost nobody knows how to actually use it. Micro expressions are tiny, involuntary facial expressions that flash across someone's face for a fraction of a second before they can control it. These happen because emotional responses are faster than conscious control. When something triggers an emotion, fear, anger, disgust, happiness, surprise, your face automatically starts to show it. But then, if you want to hide that emotion, your conscious brain kicks in and replaces it with whatever expression you want to show. That gap between the automatic response and the controlled response is usually less than half a second. But if you know what to look for, you can catch it. And when you do, you're seeing someone's true emotional reaction before they had a chance to fake something else. The most common micro-expressions involve the eyes and mouth because those are the most expressive parts of the face and the hardest to completely control. For example, genuine happiness involves the whole face. The corners of the mouth go up, obviously, but the eyes also crinkle at the corners and the cheeks push up. That's a real smile, sometimes called a Duchenne smile. But a fake smile only involves the mouth. Someone forces their lips into a smile shape, but their eyes stay flat and unchanged. You've definitely seen this. The customer service smile, the polite smile when someone tells a bad joke, the smile in a photo when someone says cheese. If someone's face flashes a real smile for a split second, then settles into a fake smile, they started with genuine happiness but then decided to control or reduce how much happiness they show. Maybe they don't want you to know how happy they really are about something. On the flip side, if someone's mouth smiles but their eyes flash a different emotion first, maybe anger or contempt, they're faking the smile entirely. They're trying to appear happy when they're actually feeling something negative. Contempt is one of the most important micro-expressions to spot, especially in relationships. Contempt looks like a slight sneer, where one side of the upper lip raises slightly. It's a look that says, "I'm better than you," or "I don't respect you." If you catch a flash of contempt on someone's face when they're talking to or about you, that's a huge red flag. Research has shown that contempt is one of the strongest predictors of relationship failure. People who feel contempt for their partner are way more likely to break up or divorce. But contempt is usually hidden because it's socially unacceptable to show. So it appears as a micro-expression, A quick flash before the person covers it with a neutral or friendly expression. Fear is another important one. Fear micro-expressions involve widened eyes and raised eyebrows, sometimes with the mouth opening slightly. If someone flashes fear when you mention a specific topic, that topic is triggering anxiety or concern for them, even if they verbally say everything is fine. This is huge in negotiations or conflicts. If you're negotiating a salary and you mention a specific number, watch their face closely. If you catch a flash of fear or surprise before they respond, you've probably asked for more than they expected. You might have room to push even higher. Anger micro-expressions show up as narrowed eyes, lowered eyebrows, and a tightened jaw. If someone's face flashes anger for a split second before they respond calmly, you've touched a nerve. They're angry but trying to hide it. Disgust involves the nose wrinkling and the upper lip raising, like you just smelled something bad. If someone micro-expresses disgust in response to an idea or suggestion, they hate it, even if their words are more diplomatic. The challenge with micro-expressions is that they're fast. You have to really pay attention to catch them. Most people are looking at their phones, thinking about what they're going to say next, or just not focused enough to spot a quarter-second facial expression. But once you start actively looking for them, you'll get better at catching them. Your brain will start to recognize the patterns automatically. Here's a practical tip. Watch for mismatches between micro-expressions and what someone says immediately after. If someone flashes surprise or fear, then says, "I already knew that," they're lying. Their face gave away that they didn't know. If someone flashes happiness, then says, "I'm so disappointed," they're actually happy about whatever happened, even if they're pretending to be upset. The face tells the truth first, then the words come in with whatever story the person wants you to believe. One more thing about microexpressions. They're universal. Every human culture shows emotions the same way. Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise. These all look the same whether you're in America, Japan, Brazil, or anywhere else. So once you learn to read them, you can read anyone regardless of language or cultural background. Here's what most people get wrong about reading others. They think it's about catching people in lies or proving someone is being fake. But that's not the real power of these skills. The real power is understanding what's really happening in any situation. It's about seeing past the polite surface-level interactions and understanding the actual dynamics at play. When you can read baseline behavior, foot direction, and micro-expressions, you're not just catching lies. You're understanding who actually has power in a room. You're seeing who genuinely likes you and who's just being polite. You're identifying when someone is uncomfortable or stressed even if they won't admit it. You're recognizing opportunities and threats before anyone says them out loud. This makes you better at everything. Better at relationships because you can tell when something is wrong before it becomes a major problem. Better at work because you understand the unspoken politics and dynamics. Better at protecting yourself because you spot manipulation and dishonesty immediately. But here's the critical thing. You can't just use these skills to judge people. That's a trap that will make you paranoid and isolated. Just because someone flashes a negative microexpression or their feet point away, doesn't mean they're a bad person or that you should write them off. People have complex emotions. Someone might flash anger but still care about you. Someone's feet might point toward the door because they have somewhere to be, not because they hate you. Someone's baseline might shift because they're tired or stressed, not because they're lying. The skill isn't just in spotting the cues, it's in understanding what they mean in context and using that information to be more empathetic and effective in your interactions. If you notice someone's feet pointing away during a conversation, you can wrap it up and let them go, rather than droning on and making them uncomfortable. If you catch a flash of fear when discussing a topic, you can approach it more gently rather than pushing hard. If you see someone's baseline shift to anxiety, you can check in with them and see if they're okay. Reading people isn't about catching them doing something wrong. It's about understanding them better so you can communicate more effectively and build better relationships. Let me quickly recap the 3 unspoken cues that will let you read anyone instantly. First, baseline behavior. You have to know what someone looks like when they're telling the truth and feeling normal before you can spot when something changes. Spend time observing how they act during casual, low-stakes conversation. Notice their eye contact patterns, speech rhythm, hand movements, posture. That's their truth state. When you ask about something important, compare their behavior to that baseline. Significant changes tell you something about that topic triggered a different emotional state. Second, directional cues, specifically where their feet point. Feet are controlled by subconscious survival instincts and are very hard to fake. If someone's feet point at you, they want to be in this conversation. If their feet point away, toward an exit, or toward something else, they want to leave. Watch feet in groups to understand the real power dynamics and who is really welcome. Watch for small foot movements that signal someone is about to leave. Third, micro-expressions. These are split-second facial expressions that reveal true emotions before someone has time to control their face. Look for mismatches between the quick flash of emotion and what the person says immediately after. Genuine smiles involve the eyes crinkling. Fake smiles only move the mouth. Contempt is a slight, one-sided sneer. Fear is widened eyes and raised eyebrows. Anger is narrowed eyes and lowered brows. Disgust is nose wrinkling. These expressions are universal across all cultures. Using these three cues together gives you a complete picture of what someone is really thinking and feeling, regardless of what they're saying. You establish the baseline so you know what normal looks like for them. You watch their feet to see where they really want to be. You catch their micro-expressions to see their genuine emotional reactions. This isn't magic or mind reading, it's just paying attention to how human psychology and body language actually work. Most people completely miss these signals because they're only listening to words and maybe watching for obvious body language cues that don't actually mean much. But now you know what to look for. You know that behavior changes from baseline are more important than any single gesture. You know that feet reveal subconscious intentions. You know that the face flashes truth before the mouth speaks lies. Start practicing these skills today. Pick one person and establish their baseline during a casual conversation. Watch where people's feet point in your next meeting or social gathering. Try to catch one micro-expression today. Just one split-second flash of emotion before someone controls it. The more you practice, the more automatic these skills become. Eventually, you won't have to consciously think about it. You'll just naturally notice when someone's behavior shifts from their baseline, where their feet are pointing, and what their face is really showing. And once you have these skills, you'll wonder how you ever functioned without them. You'll realize how much you were missing, how many signals you were blind to. Reading people isn't a superpower, it's just a skill that anyone can learn with practice. Subscribe for more psychology secrets that actually work in real life.